Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But we'll be discussing in detail during the course of the show. Today is an auspicious day, 50th anniversary of the Golden Jubilee of the Constitution of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, the Constitution of 1973. It was on this very day that that Constitution was passed without any opposition whatsoever. And today we mark the Golden Jubilee of that very Constitution. That Constitution has been a hallmark as far as Pakistan and its different organizations are concerned, whether it be the government, whether it be the establishment, whether it be the judiciary. They all abide by the Constitution of Pakistan of 1973. Today we remember that very Constitution, and also we have seen, as in the National Assembly there was a huge convention that happened to also commemorate the 50 years of this resolution of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Another resolution by this convention was also passed on this, and it was unanimously approved as well. We will be discussing that as part of our first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the G-20 summit. Now, India is hosting the G-20 summit next month, and apparently it is going to hold that in Srinagar, in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, whereas Pakistan as well as China both have had their serious reservations about this and have openly talked to different members about this. India still apparently is continuing with its designs, despite the fact that the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is not only a contested region as per various United Nations resolutions, but it is also an area where the barbarities of the Indian forces are very well known. How will they manage to do it? Will they continue to mute the voices? Will the people continue to stay indoors while the G20 summit is going on? We'll be discussing that in our second segment. Then we'll be talking about the 10-day Baisakhi festival that has begun in Pakistan. Sikh pilgrims have arrived in Pakistan from all over. As is the custom, every year these pilgrims come to Pakistan and are welcomed by our Pakistani citizens as their own brethren. The pilgrims have expressed, of course, their gratitude and satisfaction on the arrangements that have been made for the Baisakhi festival, as well as the welcome that they have received. And then finally, we'll be talking about the Iranian delegation that is to visit the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, as well as the Saudi delegation that is visiting the Islamic Republic of Iran. This is a continuation of the resumption of proper diplomatic ties between the two countries, and it's a very good omen for the Islamic world, for the Muslim Ummah, that these two countries are now working together to strengthen their relationship. And this delegation level meeting from one country to the other is just part of opening up the embassies and creating a formal relationship on the diplomatic front. And that is a very, very good news indeed. And we will end today's show with that. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns the Golden Jubilee celebrations of the 1973 Constitution of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. On this very day in 1973, the Constitution was unanimously accepted without any opposition whatsoever. Today we look back at that Constitution, and we look forward to how that Constitution will help create a more stronger aura of democracy in our country. More in the following report.
Now, Pakistan celebrates the Golden Jubilee of the Constitution of 1973, a landmark event in the country's history. 2023 marks the 50th anniversary of the promulgation of the 1973 Constitution of Islamic Republic of Pakistan. 50 years ago, on April the 10th, 1973, the then National Assembly of Pakistan passed the Constitution. The Constitution of Pakistan provides direction to develop a strong governance system guideline for political and economic rule of law, ensuring fundamental rights of citizens. The 1973 Constitution has played a pivotal role in shaping the country's democratic system and federal character, and in upholding the fundamental rights of its citizens. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has paid a rich tribute to the framers of the 1973 Constitution for their political foresight. The Prime Minister said the Constitution of Pakistan continues to be central to shaping our national character, identity, and future trajectory. The month-long Golden Jubilee celebrations of 1973 Constitution of Islamic Republic of Pakistan have formally kicked off. The month-long celebration will consist of series of events that commemorate the founding principles of federal parliamentary democracy, social justice and equality as enshrined in the Constitution. The 1973 Constitution is a landmark document that laid the foundation of a democratic and progressive society in the country.
Now, to discuss the different aspects of our Constitution of 1973, its Golden Jubilee, what it means for us today in 2023, and how should we abide by the Constitution of Pakistan, we've been joined by Naveed Aman Khan Saab. He's a senior analyst and he's here with us in the studios. Naveed Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Naveed Saab, 50 years. of the Constitution of 1973 of our Islamic Republic of Pakistan. 50 years since a document laid down the different aspects of how the country needs to move forward, what are the rules and regulations. How important is that Constitution today in 2023?
In fact, Omar, in 1973, when the Constitution was formed and formulated by the former Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto and his cabinet, it was the second sacred document after Quran. It was formulated under the directions of Quran. And we have two documents, one Quran and one the Constitution. We need to follow both of them for the betterment of the country and the nation, and for having very good future of our generations. It is only possible when the lawmakers, the parliamentarians themselves, they follow and they abide by the constitutional matters and the constitution articles of the constitutions in its true letter and spirit. Only by this way we can move ahead, and we can make gigantic progress, and we can combat those challenges which we have been facing. And we have been facing all these challenges because we have not been following that constitution as we need to follow, because the constitution is very clear, but we make it difficult. We interpret it in our own way. We need not interpret in our benefits and in our own ways. We need to interpret the constitution
as per it is,
and as per its true letter and spirit.
All right, Naveed sir, but I'd also like to understand, this is a month-long celebration that kicks off today. We are celebrating the Golden Jubilee of this institution. What kind of message needs to be put across during this month?
In fact, the most important thing is this, Omar, that we need to guarantee the fundamental rights of a common man in Pakistan. If under this constitution we guarantee the fundamental rights of a common man, we will guarantee the strength and solidarity, we will guarantee the progress of the country and the nation, and we will guarantee the addressing of the miseries of a common man. By following or by ensuring the implementation of the constitution for the good of a common man, we need to abide by constitution in all departments of the government, especially the institutions. All the institutions are under the executive, and the executive is the parliament, and the parliament is one who constitutes the constitution, and it's the only forum which writes and rewrites the constitution, and we need to follow the parliament decisions derived under constitution.
Naveed Saab, there's a very important statement that our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif made while he was addressing this convention, and he said that in 1973, the framers of the 1973 Constitution, including Shahid Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, pursued the course of consultation instead of confrontation, and gave the country a constitution which is keeping the federating units united. How important is that spirit of consultation instead of confrontation today, in today's Pakistan?
Khalid, constitution cannot be formed or could not be formed if the consultation was not done there. Consultation and negotiations and dialogues is the basics of the politics. Once you have found the way of dialogue, the consultations, the negotiations, you find the way out, and you find the way you lead your nation. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, he was a very genius and very foresighted politician of Pakistan and Prime Minister of Pakistan, and he thought that the country needs the constitution, and he worked hard with his cabinet, with his all the lawmakers, and he was successful in formulating the constitution for Pakistan. We are lucky that today we have this constitution, and if we follow this constitution, we will definitely find the way out of the marshes we are facing right now. And once we have started focusing on our issues, and we find the remedies and the solutions out of the constitution, we will go ahead and we'll move in a very decent and very graceful manner in the next decades.
All right, Naveed, let's go a little bit back into time, into when this constitution was being formulated. The first constitution committee was held in 1972 on the 22nd of April. Then 48 sittings happened during the course of 38 days, deliberations for 170 hours to come up with a draft resolution that comprises less than 180 articles and 6 schedules. How do you see the constitutional journey of Pakistan? How different it is this journey from other democracies in the world?
Constitutions are always very important for every nation, every country, and all the countries, they move ahead under the light of the constitutions, their constitutions. Our constitution, we are very lucky that we have constitution now, and it is golden jubilee time for the constitution of Pakistan, and it is the 50th anniversary of the constitution. And we hope that the things will move ahead in a better way, and we will see the Pakistan and the future of Pakistan stronger and stronger under the following of this constitution. Once we decide to follow the constitution, I don't think there is any way which harms us as a nation to move ahead and to combat the national and international issues at any level, any forum.
All right, Naveed Sahab, you know, the fact remains that constitution is a very important document that we need to understand, at least know a part of it or understand what it is all about. But unfortunately, it was not part of our curriculum. But now efforts are being made to make studies of the constitution part of the curriculum. Our Federal Minister for Information, Maryam Aurangzeb, has also tabled today a resolution to make constitutional and civic education compulsory for students. How important is this also for future generations to understand the constitution of Pakistan?
It is very, very nice. I think it is very good decision by the Federal Minister, and it should have been done long time before. Our generation should come to know what is written in the constitution. They need to learn the constitution, the basics of the constitution for the application in their daily lives. And once the young generation in their curriculums, they read and they understand the different articles and sections of the constitution, they will be in the better position of understanding the day-to-day matters of life and their rights, their deliberations, their duties for the country and the nation.
All right. Also, I'd like to understand, when you look online on what a constitution means per se, the definition. One definition is that it is a rule book for a state and sets out the fundamental principles by which a state is governed. In your point of view, how does the 1973 constitution describe the main institutions of our state and the role and the interrelationship between these institutions?
In our 1973 constitution, the role of every institution is described in detail, and every institution or the department needs to be in the limitations of its own, described or prescribed in the constitution of 1973. Once this way is opted, I don't think there is any way of any confrontation between or within the constitution, within the institutions, or in any other segment of life. So I think that all the institutions should follow the powers or the authorities of the executive, and that is the parliament. And this is the only way that we drive our path on a very prescribed limitations.
All right, Naveed, but I'd also like to understand how important is our constitution for our daily lives, whether as citizens of Pakistan, whether as professionals working in different fields, yourself and myself and others. Do you feel it is at the core of our national life, both in letter and spirit? And in your point of view, what needs to be done to further ensure that we adhere to it in our daily lives?
In fact, the first step which is taken now by the Federal Minister for Information and Broadcasting, Maryam Aurangzeb Sahiba, that it should be included in the curriculums of the generation, a new generation. Yes, when the new generation will continuously, year by year, study or read or exercise or practice the constitutional matters, they will be knowing the spirit of the constitution, what this constitution has given to them or what they need to give to the constitution and this country and the nation. Secondly, the practice of the constitution is important, and the obligation, the most important obligation is on the lawmakers and the constitutional institutions like the judiciary, the establishment, or the parliament itself. The prime minister, the president, the ministers, the cabinets, the parliamentarians all need to follow and obey the true letter and spirit of the constitution as it has described.
Already you talked about the role and the the importance of the rights of the common man of Pakistan. They need to be given all their rights. I'd like to refer to what Justice Qazi Faiz Isa Sahab also said during the convention today. He said every person, including, because he was giving reference to other eminent judges who were from other religions, and he said that he, in his point of view, he feels that we should not call minorities minorities. They have equal rights as have any other person of the country. How important is that mentality also, to understand that every citizen, irrespective of his caste, creed, religion or race, is a Pakistani and has equal rights?
Khalid, all the Pakistanis are Pakistanis. No matter they are Hindus, the Sikhs, the Hindus or Christians, they have relation to any belief or religion. They are the Pakistanis, and that they are loyal Pakistanis. And I assure you, I would categorically say that I have seen Hindus, Sikhs, Parsis, Christians, very loyal and very peaceful Pakistanis. They have never created any problem for Pakistan, and they love Pakistan as the Muslims of Pakistan love this country. This constitution guarantees their rights and their authorities in the country as well, equally as as it is for Muslims of this country. So there is no discrimination. And Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, before this constitution, in fact during his rule, he has very clearly told about the rights of the other followers of other religions, even the Parsis, the Hindus, the
Christians,
the
Sikhs.
Every person. So this constitution of 1973 is derived under the light of or under the sayings of Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and this is very clear that all the Muslims or all the Pakistanis are Pakistanis.
Naveed Sahab, this is the 1973 constitution is not the first constitution of our country, but how is it different from the other constitutions? What makes it unique?
It is very comprehensive and flawless. The 1956 and 62, there were some problems in those because those constitutions were half-heartedly made and were not comprehensive homework was not done during the formation of those constitutions. But for the 1973 constitution, the Prime Minister, the then Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto and his cabinet, they did marvelous work for the formation of the constitution, and it's comprehensive, and there's no loophole or nothing is left behind which is ununderstandable. Everything is very clear, and if we follow those clear lines of the constitution, I don't think there is any way to move ahead.
All right. Thank you so very much, Naveed, Aman Khan Saab, senior analyst, to have joined us, to have talked to us on this auspicious day of the 50th Golden Jubilee anniversary of the passing of the 1973 resolution. This is a month-long celebration. I'm sure we will have much more to discuss in the days ahead of different aspects of this resolution.
I would say Pakistan Zindabad and Constitution Zindabad.
Definitely, and I think we should adhere to the Constitution in our daily lives in order to better understand and better formulate our lives as well. Thank you very much, Naveed, Aman Khan Saab. And ladies and gentlemen, today was also the day when another resolution was passed, also commemorating the Golden Jubilee and adhering to the principles of the basic 1973 resolution. So congratulations to the entire country, that is Pakistan, on its Golden Jubilee of the 1973 constitution, and the importance needs to be underlined, and now inshallah with it being part of the curriculum, this will be underlined more and more in the days, months and years to come. Let's come to our second segment, and that concerns the G-20 summit that apparently, as per the Indian information, is being held in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir next month. Now Pakistan and China both have made severe reservations on this summit because of the fact that the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir region is a contested region as per the different resolutions of the United Nations General Assembly. And this is not since now that it is a disputed region, it's since 1948 that this region is disputed, despite the fact India, for reasons which of course we all know very well, to create this image that nothing is wrong in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and that everything is hunky-dory and that democracy is prevalent in the Indian Held Valley, and that is the basic reason for trying to hold this G20 summit in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir region. To discuss more on that issue, we've been joined by Dr. Asma Shakir Khawaja. She's the Executive Director CISS in Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Dr. Asma Shakir Khawaja Sahiba, thank you very much to have joined us.
Thank you.
Dr. Asma, I'd like to understand why has India chosen Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir for this G20 summit next month? Is there any particular reason in your point of view?
Yes, there can be several reasons in this regard. For example, if we see or we try to decipher Modi's mindset or thought process, apparently he chose Srinagar as a venue for G20 tourism summit because one they want to give his internal public an impression that everything is fine after the revocation of Article 370 in Srinagar. Then he wanted to give it as use it as a trump card in forthcoming elections in 2024 and to give this impression that everything is completely fine there. Number three, Kashmir, when we see the Hindutva ideology and BJP's working model, atrocities on Muslims, subjugation of Kashmir is like a feather in their cap and hat. Their whole politics is based on Islamophobia, and every action which undermines the rights and of Muslims and Kashmiris, that is like an achievement for them. So they are doing this to safeguard their Hindutva vote bank, that see, we have resolved the Kashmir issue and Kashmir issue is so within the hands of BJP regime that we can even have an international summit in the region. But unfortunately, and fortunately for Kashmiris, that this single action itself has internationalized Kashmir conflict, and all international forums and media people and those countries which are participating in that summit, they would be more aware than earlier that Kashmir is a conflict, a disputed piece of land, which is disputed because India is unable to implement United Nations resolutions passed in 1948. And this is how India is compromising and not giving rights to Kashmiri Muslims. If you see the international media during past few days, you would see especially the news related to right to free speech in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. There are news about Khurram Parvez, there are news about other such activists who are talking or speaking about the rights, civil rights of common Kashmiri, although they are not talking exactly about independence of Kashmir, right to self-determination, but definitely they are talking about how India has subjugated Kashmiris and free speech in Kashmir. You can read the writings of Anuradha Bhasin, and she is every day she is writing something to expose in Modi's policies in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And definitely
the fact remains the Modi's policies are exposed as per se across the world. It's just that everybody turns a blind eye and a deaf ear to all of that. What about the United Nations? What is the United Nations point of view on holding an important moot of the G20, because India is the president of G20, in a contested region as per various United Nations resolutions?
This is a very important question, Omar. As far as my limited knowledge is concerned, even international multinational companies, they cannot open their outlets in disputed territory. So your question is pertinent, that why UN is quiet and why this silence is there, why there is no objection by UN that until or unless the Kashmir conflict is being resolved as per UN resolution, there should be no such activity in that region. And definitely it is. I was scrolling down in Indian media that how they are projecting the tourism summit in Srinagar, and again the war jingoism, the sense of pride in committing atrocities on already oppressed nation was so visible in projecting this news that in Srinagar it is happening. And they were really proud of the fact that China and Pakistan are the only countries who are opposing this summit in disputed land. And this is so sad to see that there should be at least one resolution on this issue by the United Nations Security Council, United Nations General Assembly, and the members or the so-called international conscious. But we have seen that there is no such thing. And even OIC, which passed a resolution and issued a statement that India should be careful and should not commit atrocities on Indian Muslims, they should at least speak for their Kashmiri brothers, Muslim brothers who are facing these atrocities. And again, Modi wants to present that how 370 revocation of Article 370 has made Kashmir an illegal part of India, which it is definitely not. And I think Pakistan and China need more proactive diplomacy, and so that world and raise their concerns and reservations on every available international forum, that this G20 summit should not be held in Srinagar, which is an occupied territory. And then I think another point in my mind is that maybe because Modi thinks or Indian policymakers have this assumption that Kashmir freedom movement started with the support of Pakistan, because Pakistan supported it. They are unable to comprehend, realize, or at least publicly admit that Kashmir freedom struggle is the result of the promises India made in UNO and unable to fulfill them. So it is the right of self-determination. So that is why maybe choosing Srinagar would be symbolically that how India as under the leadership of Modi successfully found resolution or punitive solutions of long-standing conflicts between regions. So there can be several
Asma, I'd like to understand, you talked about Pakistan and China, that these are the two only countries that have raised objections to holding of this G20 summit in Srinagar, in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. What, in your point of view, are going to be the geopolitical ramifications of when and if, because now some days are still left to this summit to be held. Once this summit is held, what are going to be the ramifications of this on the relationship between the three countries, Pakistan, India and China?
See, ramification of relations would be relevant if there would be any relations between Pakistan and India. We all know that after Modi's 2014 Modi in power, Pakistan and India's bilateral relations are touching the lowest levels, and there is lack of communication, rather absolutely no communication. No diplomatic channels are open to define the parameters of that relationship. So the relationship which is not actually existing on ground, while writing my book on confidence building my year, I was surprised to know that 2015 was the last year when Pakistan and India officially communicated anything with each other. So this is where the relations stand. And China, India, we all know though their relations are in two dimensions. One is the trade and economic dimensions of their relation, and the other one is the conflicts India China are having. So their relations would be, if China would be little more or show more aggressive posture to India, then India would encash it vis-a-vis Europe and the USA that see, I am your ally and I am the only country in that region which on the behest of West and the USA is ready to stand against China. So India would encash Chinese aggressive posturing. So definitely, I'm sure that India would do that, because India, as I always say, that India seeks its strategic significance by exaggerating the American fears of the rise of China. So this is where India geopolitically manages itself by creating the boogie or or magnifying the threat posed by China for the US policymakers. So definitely,
Dr. Asma,
even if this is
Dr. Asma, let's come to the basis of the G20. Now, India is, of course, heading this G20 summit. Don't you feel India is trying to achieve certain important political narratives or geopolitical or domestic political narratives as a result of being the president of this G20 and by holding this summit in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir? On the other hand, Pakistan has been highlighting as mostly because other countries have more or less been mum on that, on the weaponization of FATF by India for political designs. Also, the other different human rights abuses that India is part of, including in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir region. The way, as you yourself have pointed out, towards the Hindutva policy of the RSS ideology. Do you feel, coming back to the basic crux of it all, is India really eligible to hold a G20 presidency?
Definitely not. Definitely, if a country, if a state is not a responsible state actor, it is involved in long-standing territorial conflict with the regional countries, and those territorial conflicts have been acknowledged as conflicts in the highest international body, which is UNO. If a country is involved in misfiring of highly sensitive strategic technology, so I don't think that this country should be given such posts. But definitely those posts or those temporary relocationing of India at international forum, that gives India a satisfaction and like a dream coming true to be in the international leadership circle. So definitely, and we know that when India was member of Security Council or was heading the Security Council on rotation, or India is now in G20, in FTF, India always used its position in every dimension and aspect to block the interests and position of Pakistan. So if a country is that much myopic worldview and that much biased worldview, that country ideally should not have any such positions, because even diplomatically it can present itself as a neutral, responsible actor in international politics. If a country is sliding down on where minority, it is been now acknowledged internationally that minorities are not safe in India. India is a country which is laden with majoritarianism, and majoritarianism has made the lives of minority people and as in danger, and that is being acknowledged by international organization. So I don't know what is the criteria international conscious or international community follows before giving such important positions to certain country. Definitely world has to realize that being an economic market cannot be the only criteria when you give such important positions to different countries, because when the India is given this position, actually international community demonstrated that they are not concerned with all the human rights violations in India. They are not concerned India becoming authoritarian.
Dr. Asma, this brings to mind a very important question. Is India, directly or indirectly, by holding this summit in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir in Srinagar, trying to make the world understand that, now this region is part of India, as they have always been saying, a toot ang. Do you feel they are trying somehow to make the world realize that, look, we are making this huge summit here, this is part of our country, and we're putting aside all the United Nations resolutions and the other resolutions that have been passed in different organizations, including the United Nations General Assembly?
Yeah, by holding this summit in Srinagar, Modi definitely wants to substantiate the slogan of Shining India. That see, now everything is peaceful and calm in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Kashmiri people are happy, and Srinagar is such an inclusive town and peaceful town where we can hold such international summit. And Kashmir has, by choice, have become part of India or larger Indian nationalism. So this is what and keep it in mind that this message is not only for the international audience. This message is similarly, I think maybe in some aspects more important for the domestic audience, which is the vote bank of Mr. Modi. So but maybe if Pakistan would pursue a proactive diplomacy, this would be like the revocation of Article 370, internationalized Kashmir, and there were so many resolutions by different organizations on the peaceful resolution of Kashmir. So maybe this act would also highlight Kashmir and the world if Kashmiris and Pakistan would proactively, diplomatically work in the international community, that it is the right time maybe the time is ripe to resolve Kashmir conflict. And definitely by holding summit in occupied territory, that territory does not appear to belong to the oppressor, all the colonial powers. And if that would be the case, British or Britain would never be called colonial power in India, because they would have several conferences. The South Asian people fought for Second and First World War, but that did not made India part of Britishism or British nationalism. So Britain was a colonial power, and India is a colonial oppressor in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Whatever conferences they intend to hold in Srinagar or wherever, it is just like that if you have a headache and a doctor gives you an antibiotic. Antibiotic is not the solution of headache. So if India even is holding the G-20 summit in Srinagar, it is not the solution of Kashmir conflict. Under any definition, it cannot be interpreted. The epistemology would not lead us to interpret it as the resolution of long-standing Kashmir conflict, which world should realize that how important it is.
Dr. Asma, you were right to say that, on the one hand, if they try to, give some kind of point of view or justification by holding this summit, this will also highlight the Kashmir cause, because I'm sure so many international publications that have written about the Kashmir cause in the past will also be raising the same questions as we are right now in this very show, as to why a summit is being held in a contested region, a region that is contested since 1948. And since 1948, the same India that is presiding over the G-20 has not given the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir their right to self-determination, to decide what they want to do. This is a deliberate oppression, deliberate abuse of human rights, and I am sure that international publications, Washington Post, New York Times and others will certainly highlight this aspect of that. One question I'd like to understand, Dr. Asma, is an interesting economic angle to all of that. Now, illegally detained all parties Hurriyat Conference Chairman Musarrat Alam Butt has said that India has been subjugating the Kashmiris to socio-economic aggression. What, in your point of view, will be the moral standing of the countries that are pledging to attend the G-20 summit, where the majority of the region where this summit is being held are brutalized and plundered?
Omar, this economic aggression is a is a continuous practice by Modi regime. Is right now, if you see, Muslims are the one of the most poor minority of India. The unemployment ratio in illegally Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir is the highest. It's the illegally Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir doesn't have enough. If you remember, during COVID, there were only 7 ventilators for the whole Kashmiri population. Their hospitals are not well equipped. In Modi regime, India is actually treating Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir as an occupied territory, and they are not investing in sustainable development in that region. But definitely, to score points, they want to attract international investors to come and invest in the tourism business of Kashmiris, and they are luring Kashmiris that economic incentives and how this investment would bring economic development in the region. And this reminds me,
Dr. Asma, the fact remains that economic subjugation of any populace is not does not equal putting a huge summit of the economic powers of the world that be, and that having that summit in a place where you yourself are subjugating the people to economic aggression, deliberate economic aggression, so that they can remain mum. And I hope that this will be highlighted in all the important media outlets across the world when this happens next month. Thank you so very much, Dr. Asma Shakir Khawaja Sahiba, who you're the Executive Director of CISS Azad Jammu and Kashmir, to have joined us and to have talked to us about the India being President of the G-20 for this year, holding this summit in Srinagar, in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. What a huge question mark or sham, may I put it that way. Let's come to our last two stories, ladies and gentlemen, very quickly. The first concerns the Sikh pilgrims. Around 2,470 pilgrims have crossed the Wagah-Atari border on foot to enter Pakistan to celebrate Baisakhi. This is a 10-day Baisakhi festival that is going to be held in various gurdwaras all across Punjab. This is a yearly ritual that happens in Pakistan, and for that, Sikhs from all across the world, this time I'm just giving you the numbers that have come from India, but they are coming from all across the world. And they are extremely happy at the way they are not only being welcomed, but also the way everything has been set up for this Baisakhi festival. We encourage, we love all the different communities that come to us, and the Sikhs know that. The Sikh community has also revered Pakistan and the Pakistanis as brothers. Let's come to our last story very quickly also, and it is an equally important story. We have told to you about the convergence of the two Islamic countries, that is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Islamic Republic of Iran, since quite some time. It was due to China's interference and China's efforts that both these countries came together. And now we are seeing more such efforts that are going on in this vein. Iran's foreign ministry has said a delegation is going to visit the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia by Friday to pave the way to open the diplomatic missions there, following a similar move that has been made by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia as well. These diplomatic relations are very important, not only for the two countries, but for the Muslim Ummah as well. This shows to the world that the Muslim Ummah is one, despite what has been the past remains the past, and we move forward to a brighter future for the Muslims and for all the Islamic Ummah. On that note, we end today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new story segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe, and Allah Hafiz.